All right, hello, and welcome back to the podcast. We had a little internet connectivity problem right there. We're back now. So, we were talking about your podcast, correct?
Yes. Um, so so we started the podcast for a few different reasons. And personal reasons, I wanted to overcome the shyness of speaking on camera. And but the main motivation behind our podcast, which is called the Saigon Saga, was to unite the grappling community and to create opportunities for everyone. Because as I said, it's we have a lot of different gyms, introverted people. Nothing wrong with introverted people, but I just saw so many amazing stories that I felt that were, if once they were shared, we would become closer as a community.
That's a great, I like
And
that. That's a great idea. Yeah.
yeah, and we'd be able to do more things together by reallocating resources. So the Saigon Saga, the reason behind that name is it's the great story of the growth of grappling in Vietnam, and we're all a part of it. So it makes everyone feel like they're a part of it. So so that they when they contribute to it, they'll create more opportunities and everyone has more. It benefits everyone in a more impactful way.
One cool thing about you for your podcast, I'm sure you thought about this already. You might already be doing like, I mean, you could easily have someone sponsor your podcast. It's just a niche, right? Like that, like drink company from the Nordic countries, like, hey,
Mm,
just sponsor the podcast.
yeah, we need to do a better job with getting like monetary
I
sponsors.
suck at
Like
that so much of monetizing.
like if we could get a sponsor who gave us like a dollar amount every
Hmm.
month, it would be a lot better because I just one of my weaknesses is asking for money.
Yeah.
It's easy to get sponsors to provide their
Mhm.
product because they want access to our
Yeah.
audience, right? Um, but we're getting there. We're
Mhm.
getting there. Our crypto sponsor is does provide some monetary assistance for events and things like that. And now we're
Mhm.
expanding into other
Yeah.
fitness communities
So you doing like a podcast once a week, once a month, or just you doing whenever you feel like doing it?
every Wednesday.
Okay.
Every Wednesday, and we just published episode 50.
Mhm.
So in
That's a
two
big deal.
yeah, so if in 2 weeks it'll be our 1 year, but after that we're just doing every 2 weeks
Okay.
because now we want to focus on things that actually make money.
Hmm.
Because for the last year, I mean, the podcast was funded by us.
Yeah.
We've lost money. The,
Hmm.
the the point was never to make money,
Yeah.
but now we've had actually much more influence than we ever imagined
Hmm.
possible,
Yeah.
and much more support, and we connected and created opportunities that we never thought were possible. And now we have born out of that is now we have the Saigon Grappling
Hmm.
Academy that we're building small. That is a way that we can actually make money.
Hmm.
So after episode 52, it's going to be a bi-weekly podcast
Okay.
every 2 weeks
Okay.
because when we first started, we would have like we had no idea what we were doing. We'd have like three cell phones, no quality audio, and then like three different video tracks and
Hmm.
three different audio tracks. And and then we would have it like in a room that was echoing.
Hmm.
So if one person, so then you had a lot of mic bleed, didn't even
Yeah.
know that term at the time. It
Yeah.
would take us like 10 hours
Yeah.
to edit. We were editing on CapCut.
Yeah. I remember those
It was
days.
terrible. Like,
Yeah.
why
Yes.
would
Yeah.
you edit long form on CapCut?
Yeah.
And because like now you got this audio file and this video
Hmm.
file, and it doesn't, 2 minutes it lines up, but 47 minutes
Yeah.
doesn't line up.
Yeah.
So then you're cutting six
Hmm.
different tracks. It was an absolute nightmare. But
Man.
now we've got to the point where I can take this,
Hmm.
I connect this straight to a Shure
Hmm.
microphone straight here,
Hmm.
and then sometimes we just pass the mic,
Yeah.
or we have two microphones, and it's super easy. We can edit in 30 minutes.
Yeah. Easily now. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But doing this podcast do a lot of fun, meet a lot of interesting people, background stories and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
So we basically our approach was because again, I'm actually relatively new at grappling. I didn't even start until I haven't been doing grappling consistently until since October of 2020. So, but with my wrestling background, it really helped.
Yeah.
And because I wrestled in college, like, okay, I'm just going to wrestle. I'm just going to practice 3 times a week and get into every single competition to kind of help accelerate. But in this community, I just went and interviewed all of the most influential people, or many of the most influential people in the community, and then highlighted them, highlighted their gyms, and then that just started really good conversations community wide that led to, you know, Saigon Superfights, that led to seminars and other events and initiatives that pretty much benefited everyone. So that was a huge learning experience for myself and my co-host Adam, who is really I'm like the ADHD, like trying to be a visionary kind of person that is so disorganized. Adam is 10 years younger and much wiser and organized than I am. And so with our partnership, that's another thing that goes back to startups is, you know, he is good at everything that I'm not.
Yeah.
You know, and he's even better at some of the things that I'm good at. So so that was really the premise of that. And through that we've gained international partnerships like ADCC, which is a grappling promotion. They're our sponsors. And they give free registrations to our grapplers in Vietnam that allow us to send grapplers overseas, which is one of the things we look for in sponsors. How can you provide opportunities to our under-resourced grapplers here in Vietnam?
Can someone make a full-time living off just doing grappling?
You can do that. It's more possible now than it used to be. It's very difficult. The if you are if you're very like a world famous grappler, you can charge $2,000 for a 2 hour seminar. You can do that. If you're Craig Jones, who is by far probably the most famous grappler in the world. He's not the best grappler, but he's just really funny and is really creative with his marketing. He makes a lot of money in a lot of different ways. But the way that most people grapplers make money is through giving seminars and through having a gym. But it's hard to make money in grappling because grappling is a tough sell, man. Like you're convincing someone to go and roll around with sweaty men in this nasty environment and like it's not necessarily clean and stuff like that. Pickleball is an easy sell. Everyone will do pickleball, right? So the combination of the fact that it's hard to get people to do jujitsu, you have to get them addicted, right? They have to get to the point where they're like addicted. Then they're a student for life, right? And then you got to like a lot of grapplers don't have money, so there's a balance between like grappling coaches aren't in it for the money. It might be the worst business model on planet Earth, to be honest with you. Like gyms are a terrible business model as it is. Grappling gym is even tougher sell. So you can do it. I make enough money to pay for my noodles and coffee in Vietnam, but I have to work online and do other projects in order to do it. Right.
So from your point of view, what's the current state of the Vietnam martial arts ecosystem, and what do you see happening to it in the future?
That is a great question. I believe that we are at an inflection point, and I think it's for a few different reasons. The reason why there's a few different factors, according to my humble opinion of in my limited experience here in Vietnam. I've only been in the Vietnam grappling community for 2 years. There's people who've been in it for 10 or 12 years, like Matt Vajecki is a good example. Who've been here for a long time. So, not this is just my perspective. A lot of Southeast Asian countries have deep rooted martial arts like Muay Thai, thousands of years. You got Lethwei in Myanmar, thousands of years. You got Cambodia, they all have these martial arts. Vietnam does have their own martial arts, but it's not internationally recognized. Vietnam is a special place because the Vietnamese and the foreigners get along really well. Other Southeast Asian countries, they don't mix as well. right? Malaysia is another country where it mixes really well. 2 or 3 years ago, Vietnam started its first MMA promotion, which is called Lion Championship. Now we've got at least three MMA promotions: Lion Championship, Arena Fighters, and now Gods of Martial Arts. Gods of Martial Arts is Johnny Tree Nguyen's new promotion, the Hollywood actor that everyone knows, and he is taking this like he has like cinematic promotion, and it's truly celebrating. Last year was all about Vietnamese only, and then now he's expanding it to Southeast Asia. So you have all these different Southeast Asian countries. The reason why jiu-jitsu has become more popular in the last 10 years is because of the UFC. If you were in the UFC, like in the early days, if you're in the UFC and you only know how to strike, you only know how to fight, you can't grapple, you're not going to win. Now the Vietnamese want to win these MMA championships. What does that mean? They need to learn grappling. So now grappling is expanding, right? Now we've got our first Vietnam-based international MMA promotion, which is Gods of Martial Arts. And now this year is going to be the International Tournament Series, which includes 5 additional countries: Cambodia, Laos, Malaysia, Myanmar, and Thailand. And you got very prestigious prizes, right? And this is more or less an MMA tournament where most of the fighters are strikers. They're very good at striking. They're not that good at grappling. So what's going to happen is all of these strikers, all of these different countries are going to want to learn grappling so that they can win the prestigious prize in Gods of Martial Arts and these other MMA promotions throughout Southeast Asia. So I think we're going to see, I think 2025 is going to be an inflection point in both MMA and grappling because they're both interconnected and because Johnny is getting this international attention. I've done with my partners and through the Saigon Saga and through the partnerships throughout Saigon, we've been able to shine a little bit of international attention on Vietnam and gotten some high level grapplers. Like for example, a 10th Planet guy is just landed today, and which wouldn't have happened if it wasn't the combined support with the grappling. But Johnny is doing something special to where he's putting this potentially like on Netflix. So if you watch his podcast, it is like Hollywood. It's like the Hollywood grade. And so they just released the first podcast the other day, within the last couple of days. This year is really going to put Vietnam on the map, and this is a very special time to be in Vietnam for the martial arts history.
How connected you do like the U.S. connect to U.S. grapplers? Like the whole separate community, or
the United States? I mean, the United States grappling scene is the highest in the world, right? And then that's the Brazilians came to LA, in the early '90s to start it. The Gracies. And then basically then you had the UFC, you have all this money, and American companies are really good at marketing and things like that. I like my grappling career is mostly outside the United States. I trained in Austin, Texas, where this is like the epicenter of no-gi grappling, and I trained at some of the best gyms in the world, like to include B Team, Craig Jones, Nikki Ryan, Jay Rod, Ethan Krenlenstein, these guys that anyone outside the grappling community, most people don't know who they are, but these are celebrities in the grappling world. I've trained there, but now through our podcast, we've been able to connect with these guys and been able to get these guys to come to Vietnam basically through our network and our community efforts through our podcast initiatives.
Are there any like upcoming UFC fighters that you like or excited about?
Man, I tell you, man, I think that I don't watch UFC a whole lot, but I have recently, and I think like Max Holloway, man, Max Holloway when he one of the best performances, one of my favorite UFC performances was Max Holloway against Gaethje
Mm-hmm.
And because Gaethje was bigger than he was, and Gaethje was, was the guy to
Mm-hmm.
beat, right? And they had the BMF.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember that fight? The BMF, and then you had Max Holloway in a five round championship, win pretty much every round and knock him out at the very end, the last second. That is, there's no other greater display of dominance. But then he gets knocked out by Taporia. So it's like, so I think, I mean, it's amazing how the UFC, you can be an absolute superstar one day, and then the next fight
And one
your
straight, one,
career's
one,
over.
one blow, yeah.
Like now your career is like almost over. But I think Pereira,
Mm-hmm.
like, I'm interested to see what happens with Pereira, and like, and what's going to happen with John Jones. And I think, because it's like, what I like about John Jones is, like, winning isn't enough. Like, just winning a championship isn't enough. He wants something more.
Yeah.
So I'm interested to, because, like, Pereira is just dangerous. Like, the way he just dominated that last fight. Really interested to see what happens with that. Um, and then also, like, I think one of the best, like, Conor McGregor in his prime might be the best example of a UFC fight in his prime.
Yeah.
Like, he was unstoppable, and he was such
He
a
talk shit, he
strong.
could back the shit up. Like,
He
yeah,
was he was like a promoter. Like,
yeah,
the UFC is famous because of him,
yeah.
in part because of him, and the way that he was so loose, and the smile on
Mm-hmm.
his face, and looking across on the other side of the cage, they're like timid and like
Mm-hmm.
this, and this is supposed to be the best match in history,
Mm-hmm.
and then he wins the match in seconds.
Yeah.
Like, unfortunately, he really liked to party. So,
Yeah, I
and
definitely think the UFC lost a little bit of something where you kind of went down the drain, so to speak.
yeah, and he actually won. He made so much money outside the UFC
Mm-hmm.
because he was so good at personal branding.
Yeah.
But, like, I'm interested to see what Pereira does.
Mm-hmm.
I'm interested to see, like, what happens with Taporia. Well, what is Holloway going to do? These are some of my favorite guys to
Mm-hmm.
watch, and I hope that we can get another like Conor McGregor,
Yeah.
because he has a personality.
Yeah.
And whether you love him or hate him, you're gonna watch him.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so that's what I'm interested in
So talk about
UFC.
this. So I watch Joe Rogan a lot because Joe Rogan's a big UFC fan.
Yeah.
He talk about, like, he said, like, if people don't understand about UFC fighters, like, they have a lot of confidence, and within one blow, the confidence is gone, right? And then there's a lot of time the fighters get top of the world, they get knocked out, and the confidence is gone. They never get back to that place they're at, right? Can you talk about that?
I mean, I think, like, Gaethje's a good example. Like, Gaethje was on top of the world when he had that kick knockout against, what's his name? I forget. Uh I'm so bad with names. But then, after he fought Holloway, now they're like, okay, now he's going to retire.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, I'm more of a grappler. I play around with MMA. I spar MMA. I've never competed in a pro fight. Never going to. I'm not willing to. I've
Yeah.
lost enough. I have enough brain damage myself,
Yeah.
self-inflicted. Um, but when I first started training Muay Thai, like, for real, at Rooster Muay Thai under Lucas Bowdy, Belgian guy, amazing Muay Thai coach, the most humble guy you'll ever see. You, like, unassuming guy. You would never think anything this guy on the street. One of the most dangerous people I've met on planet Earth. And it's really easy in a Muay Thai class when you're punching the
Mhm.
bag, and you're like, man, I can do this. I can win some MMA fights. But then when you're sparring and then you get punched in the face, that first time you get punched in the face, like, it just changes the way you think.
So this is just totally random. I think that's wrong with the earth right now. Too many people growing up without getting punched in the face, right? I think that's a lesson to learn, like, take a punch to the face and how you come overcome that, right? I think too many people need not literally be punched in the face, but maybe literally, right? Like, too many people,
Yeah.
like, grow up all their life not having a fight, not having, like, any resolution, right?
I think you should be get punched in the face
Mhm.
early in life. I do think that. Because I think that it changes you.
Yeah, a lot of
And,
people you can tell they've never been punched in the face by the way they act
yeah.
towards people and what they do.
Yeah, and it's like and then I would spar with some, like, I have a lot of friends who are pro fighters.
Mm-hmm.
I spar with these guys. They're not even really trying against me, and
Mm-hmm.
they destroy me. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm not gonna.
So talk about what you're doing with gods of martial arts.
Yeah, so God's martial
That's something
arts.
pretty recent you're doing.
Yeah, so I've had the very distinct honor of being selected to be the international recruiter for God's Martial Arts 2025 International Tournament Series. Now, Gods of Martial Arts is the first MMA promotion that I have seen, that I have experienced, that truly celebrates martial arts traditions. And here in Southeast Asia, we have traditions that are thousands of years old, and a lot of diverse traditions, to include Vietnam. In America, martial arts is more like a business. How many people can we get people to watch, and knockouts and stuff like that? So Johnny, asked me to help recruit for the international tournament series, where I would recruit from those 5 countries that I mentioned earlier: Cambodia, Laos, Malaysia, Myanmar, and Thailand. And this is now we're going to have Vietnam champions against these top fighters from these 5 different countries. And this last year we had 3 different Gods of Martial Arts events: quarterfinals, semifinals, and the finals, all Vietnamese. This year in 2025, we're gonna have 8 different events, 4 Vietnamese only and 4 with the international tournament series. And it's going to be really interesting because we're gonna, like, what's going to happen when we have, you know, a, a Lethway Myanmar fighter. Lethway, these are like bare knuckle fighters that, and headbutts allowed. These guys are tough. Like, and I'm looking at, like, a lot of MMA records are like 7-2, 6-1. These guys out of, like, doing these out of Myanmar and Thailand, their records are like 85-19. And it's insanity, like, how many fights these guys have been in. And they're not like from America, where, like, everyone in the world knows about this.
Mm-hmm.
This is old traditions where not a lot of people know about it. So we have diverse striking traditions in an MMA tournament that is on a grand stage with Hollywood level production, where grappling is not really, they're mainly strikers, they're not really grapplers. So they need to improve their grappling and then wrestling to really win. What is going to happen? I don't know, but it's going to be really interesting to see. This is the really God's Martial Arts International Tournament Series. It's really the first time we've ever seen on display these diverse, traditions that are thousands of years old in one tournament, MMA in an MMA tournament.
And what's the tournament going to be at?
It's a lot of it. It's going to be here, and it's going to be in Vietnam. Lien Phoom, which is near District 7. They have some Gods of Martial events there. The last event that they had was at the Ho Tram, the Grand Ho Tram. Walt Power is the CEO of the Grand Ho Tram.
That's a hotel down on the beach, right?
Yep.
Okay.
So it's almost, it's like you took a Las Vegas hotel and put it in Vietnam. It's that nice.
Is it?
So, and so I think that it's going to be some events are going to be at Lien Phoom, some are going to be at Ho Tram, but who knows? Who knows what Johnny has in store for us this year?
And when is this tournament? When is the dates for it?
They got the first international. I think the first international tournament series is going to be in May, but there might be some of the Vietnamese ones before that. So that's a good question. I think probably March or April will be the next one.
And how did you meet Johnny? Like, y'all been friends for a long time. How that relationship come about?
It's actually a really interesting story. So I don't really, I don't, I got really lucky. Actually, I was at Lion Championship, and I was going around. I had a few girls with me who were my friends, helping me do interviews. I was just going around interviewing anyone who would take the mic.
Mm-hmm.
One my friend said, she said, there's Johnny, you might want to interview him. He is really famous. I was like, okay. I go up and I interview him. And I said, hey, Lean Fawn really did a really spectacular display. We all know you guys are here. You know, you guys have a really loyal fan base. You know, how you doing? And Johnny actually, he actually knew who I was, and it was, you know, and I was flattered that he knew. He said, "You're Zach, right?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Yeah, if I see your stuff on Facebook." And I was just like, that was like a really special moment for me, because like that meant like my podcast is going somewhere, and I'm having a positive
Mm-hmm.
influence in beyond to some degree. So that's how I met Johnny. Like how I met Johnny is actually on YouTube,
Mm-hmm.
and he shared that on his page. And the next day he asked me to coach wrestling at Lee and Falm
Mm-hmm.
for a month. And I went down there uh every day, every weekday for a month.
And Johnny, does he live here in Vietnam?
He does.
Okay.
And so he's created like an MMA community called Lee and Falm. And he truly loves martial arts
Mm-hmm.
traditions. You know, that's his main motivation. And they have their own culture
Mm-hmm.
at Lee and Falm,
Mm-hmm.
and it's mainly Vietnamese. You know, there's only a few people in the class who could speak English.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I learned a little bit of Vietnamese like there too. And they thought, yeah, I entertained them when I tried to speak it, but that was the first time was when I interviewed him. And then he asked me to coach, which was a big honor for me, coach wrestling. Coached him in September, throughout September. And then after that, I interviewed him and he said, "Hey, why don't you come to God's Martial Arts?"
Mm-hmm.
I was like, "Okay." I went to God's Martial Arts. They was held at Lee and Falm.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was like, "Hey, you mind if I just do some interviews?" And he gave me media passes, right? And he said, "How many media passes you need?" I said, "3." And he said, "Okay." So then so we went down there and interviewed everyone.
Yeah.
And then he said, "Hey, why don't you just help me recruit for Gods and Martial
Mm-hmm.
Arts next year?" And I was like, "Man,
Nice.
what an incredible opportunity!" And this year there could be, it's possible that I'll be hosting the English version of GMA podcast and be a commentator, excuse me, for Gods and Martial Arts events.
Isn't it crazy how opportunities come from where you probably not expecting, right? Like, I bet in a million years, you could never plan it, right? You could never like plan it out how it's working for you, right? You just never know. Like, you just got to put yourself out there sometimes and like the universe take control, I guess.
Yes. And the biggest opportunities I've had in Vietnam came from the most unexpected places,
Mm-hmm.
that came from basically me helping someone else or me putting myself out there.
Mm-hmm.
It's not easy to get a micro. You're the only guy on the
Mm-hmm.
microphone like who has ever come and started doing interviews,
Yeah.
and like that's not an easy thing to do,
No.
man. I mean, I was a little shy.
I mean, Johnny could have used to say, "Who the fuck is this white dude? Like, what the fuck is this?" You know, like, I'm Johnny. Who the fuck are you? You know?
And that was one of the things that I was thinking about, like, am I going to be taken seriously?
Mm-hmm.
Like, who is this guy? This guy's only been doing grappling. This guy just got here. Who is he
Mm-hmm.
to have a podcast? Right. So it was incredible. Working with Johnny is a true honor, and thankful for every opportunity he's given me.
Talk about this a little bit, right? Talk about, we talk about some a little bit in a different way, but like the points of this getting started, right? Like you said, the podcast, it's never perfect, right? A lot of times people in life, like, I want to learn how to play piano or start a business. And they're, oh, I'm not ready yet. You're never fucking ready, right? So you talk about the points like this, you want to do something, let's fucking do it, right? Get started.
Yeah. So I just remember like, and I think like a lot of podcast hosts are like this. I remember the first episode that we did. I watched it and I hated the way I looked. I hated the way I sounded. I thought Adam spoke really well, more handsome guy, and And basically I was like, I even considered, it's like, should I get voice lessons? I hate the way I sound so much that I should take voice lessons. But this is the one thing that really got me. I was like, look, everyone has accepted me.
Mhm.
Everyone has accepted the way I look and
Mhm.
sound, except for me.
Mhm.
I have to accept
Yeah.
the way that I look and sound. And then after that, I just didn't really
Yeah.
care.
Yeah.
But I believe that this is an example of um there's a huge reward,
Mhm.
right, in courage, right? Whether it's wrestling or podcasting or something that you're scared to do something, you don't know what's on the other side, but if you're able to get through it, the rewards are huge. And
Yeah.
for me, the first time that happened to me was with wrestling,
Mhm.
because I'd already tried all the sports. I sucked at all of them, right? I sucked all at all of them. Like my uncle was the football coach. He wouldn't even let me play. You know what I mean? Like I can't blame him. I was in third grade, right? And then you start wrestling and you get absolutely
Mhm.
humiliated for the first 50 matches. Girls were making fun of me at
Mhm.
church. That's how bad it was. But then eventually I got through it and then I became a pretty good wrestler. And because of that, tons of rewards that are basically the strength, the inner strength, and the resilience that I
Mhm.
have within myself that eventually led me to travel
Mhm.
internationally is the same thing as getting on a podcast, putting yourself out there, and those things that take courage that you're scared to do and you don't know what's going to happen. You know that you're going to be judged, I believe,
Mhm.
are some of the the most rewarding things in life.
It's crazy. Like everyone hates their voice, right? Everyone hates it for some reason. Right? I have a friend of mine. She's a lady. I mean, her voice sounds so angelic. It's like the most soothing thing ever. And everyone tries to tell her you have the best voice we've ever heard, but to her voice sounds scratchy, like a checkerboard, like nails on a checkerboard. Like, what are you talking about?
Mhm.
Like I could go to sleep to your voice, right? But in her mind, she hears like something completely different.
Yeah, exactly. Lex Fridman said that he hates the way he looks and
Yeah,
sounds,
yeah,
and so yeah, I don't know what it is about us humans.
yeah.
We're
Or worst
so
enemies sometimes.
self-critical of ourselves, and it's like
And so you have an event tomorrow.
two events
Two
tomorrow.
events. Can you talk
We,
about those?
yeah, we've got the first one. Our first grappling event is Michael Hillebrand, a black belt out of 10th Planet, Oakland.
Mhm.
Um, he basically just wants to come and first time in Vietnam, wants to make an impact on our
Mhm.
community and keeping the expenses extremely low.
Mhm.
So we're able to keep the price like very
Mhm.
low. So maximum participation.
Mhm.
It's going to be in a new venue at a new gym called Ace Martial Arts, 100 square meters, air conditioned with brand new mats, which is pretty rare in the Saigon grappling community. Usually, we don't. The Saigon grappling community is under resourced, and we don't really have air conditioned spaces. This is a big air conditioned space. Really excited about that. And our second event is pickleball at BSB Pickleball. It is a brand new venue, really nice. The bathrooms are air conditioned. If I didn't know any better, I thought I was in a club. Like they're that nice. And like championship courts, we're giving away $1,000 in crypto prizes, real money. The challenge with crypto is like there's a lot of scams, but this is like a legitimate
Mhm.
crypto. Thanks to shout out to Shade Protocol, Carter, and Mirko. And so this whole event, we kept the price very low to that. We have three pickleball courts, one for beginners who want to learn a lesson, one for amateurs who want to pick up some pickleball, just pick up games, and then a championship court where you can win up to $500 in crypto. Really nice environment. We got Pure Bowls providing free acai
Mhm.
bowls to anyone who attends, and we're making this an event to basically we're not really trying to make money off of it. We just want maximum participation. We got professional photographers there, and you're invited too, free of charge if you'd like to stop by. Even if you don't want to play
Yeah,
pickleball, you'll get introduced to a
yeah,
nice community. And one of the main things that we're trying to do is unite the martial arts and
Mhm.
pickleball
Mhm.
communities and see what opportunities come from that.
For the grappling, is it only for people actually doing grappling match, or can a random person come by and like watch grappling or
Anyone can come.
okay,
Anyway, you can come to the grappling
yeah,
tomorrow.
Tim will
Why
come to the
don't you
grappling
why
team,
don't you
yeah,
come?
yeah,
It's at 2 o'clock.
okay,
You can participate. You can watch. You can meet. There's a lot of really remarkable people
yeah.
in the grappling community. Like I found my dentist in the grappling community.
Mhm.
It's a German dentist, Adrian. The, uh, I'm not. This is unbiased. The best dentist
Uh-huh.
I've had in my life.
Yeah.
I hate going to the dentist, but I love going to Adrian's here in Chaldean. Um, but yeah, please stop by
I
either
will.
one of the events.
Yeah,
You don't
I
have to
want
pay.
to.
You don't have to pay anything. I'm excited about both events.
And what time
Um,
the pickleball event started?
it's gonna start at 5 o'clock.
Okay.
BSB is in
Are they
Onfu.
both in the same area?
Yeah, they're both in Onfu actually.
Okay.
I'll send you the locations.
Okay.
Both are super nice,
Okay.
but the word come and play pickleball, get a free acai bowl, meet some cool people, play a little bit of
Yeah.
pickleball. You'll meet Pickleball Dave.
Mhm.
Pickleball Dave is like a really big like a new influence here in
Mhm.
Saigon who has a personality, really good
Okay.
coach, and really making connections in a way that I think Saigon needs right now.
Cool. So if you're like a basketball fan, like your dream might be to play basketball with Michael Jordan one-on-one, right? You know you're gonna win, even though he's like in his 50s, 60s. Like, man, I get to play basketball with Michael Jordan. You have like a dream grappling match with someone who's like a big grappler somewhere, and you're like, man, I know I can't beat him, but just like be in the same area with him, like to get lessons from him.
Yeah. I've actually met my I've Craig Jones to me is the most influential grappler in the world because he does events, charities, and he blends all of these different communities
Mhm.
together. And so one of the most remarkable things he did was like the Olympics of grapplings was ADCC, Abu Dhabi Combat Club, and the world champion or would win $10,000, which is nothing because grappling, like to win that, you have to, there's only 5 champions in the world, right? So like that doesn't even cover your costs, your
Mhm.
training costs. Craig Jones was like, you know what? Like, well, I'm tired of these. And they had raised millions of dollars and just put it into promotion and
Mhm.
marketing and stuff like that. He in 3 months raised $3 million and created a grappling event where everyone to show up, everyone who was invited to this tournament made $10,001 just for participating, just to say, hey, we value and just to say that you make more money than the champion just by coming here, and then the winners to get $1 million. So he was able to do that, give back to charities, and really make an impact globally. I met Craig Jones a few years ago, but my dream is to be able because our Saigon Superfights is kind of like take some elements from CJI, Craig Jones Invitational, to give opportunities. My dream would to be work on a project with Craig Jones,
Okay.
and to get to the point to where I would be valuable enough, or he would see enough value in me to work with me. That would be my dream.
So let's say it's December 20th, 2025, right? In the future. What needs to happen between now and that date for you to say, you know what, 2025 was a good year for me?
Yep.
Whatever the good year for you means.
I think that the ability to have number one, I think Gods of martial arts, Saigon super fights are two opportunities I can have a positive influence on the community and be able to live comfortably off of sponsorships
Mhm.
and have my enough gym memberships to where I don't have to worry about
Mhm.
daily expenses.
Mhm.
And then we get to the point where we have so much momentum where we're impacting a lot of people's lives in the grappling and fitness communities here in Vietnam and contribute to Johnny's vision of putting Vietnam martial arts on the map. That would be a good
So basically,
2025.
like this is your life's work now, right? Like this is what your life's going to be about from now on, correct?
Yeah,
Okay.
and it's about martial arts and it's about events.
Mhm.
Like I think I'm an events guy.
Mhm.
Like I can I can create an event that benefits a lot of different organizations.
Mhm.
Every like organization has a capability or an asset,
Mhm.
and they also have a need. You have 10 organizations, they have 10 different assets, you have 10 different needs. How do you put those together and an event that benefits everyone
Mm,
toward a shared vision. I do believe that that is one of my skill sets, and I want to apply that here in Vietnam because I love the Vietnamese
mm,
people, and I feel more at home in this country than any place I've ever been
mm.
in life. And for me to do what I love and have a positive impact in this country means more to me than anything.
Nice. So Zach, is there anything I should have asked you that I haven't yet, or anything else you want to talk about?
I don't think so. But I just thank you for having me on the podcast. What are some of the things you'd like to share that you've learned through podcasting and your experience in Vietnam?
I mean, with podcasts, it's just like like I joke around when I started the podcast, my IQ was like -10. Now it's like 110, right? You just learn so much, like learn so much from you, different people I talk to. I mean, so many interesting people, right? Like I have a thing, everyone has a story to tell, right?
Yeah,
Everyone has a story to tell. And plus, a podcast, like a good thing about podcasts, it's crazy. Like I have a podcast. Oh, you have a podcast. It's like in my mind, it's not a big deal, right? Like,
yeah,
oh, so you have a podcast. You're like, y'all like put it like, like not even a media person, like, okay, you're like a known person, right? Like you have like credibility, so to speak, you know.
yeah. What advice do you have for me in podcasting and doing these events here in Vietnam?
Oh man, a good question. So with the thing with the podcast, you're always gonna get better, right? It's always like small little things. And one thing frustrating for me, like I'll do something for a while, and then it's like I guess I'm kind of a slow learner. Oh shit, I've been doing it this way, right? So it's always a better way to do it, right? Um, and another thing too, everyone wants to come to podcasts. Like
Mm-hmm.
everyone wants to come to podcasts. They don't care how small your podcast is. Like oh, because they know it's an opportunity, right, to tell a story.
Yeah,
They know you can put on LinkedIn or YouTube, you know, they know the SEO stuff out of it, you know, they know can use data stuff, you know.
yeah,
Um, people ask me all the time, how you ask a good question? Like I don't have a set of questions, right? I just whatever
exactly.
pops up in my head, that's what I ask, right? Like
Yeah,
when I ask you about how do you connect with Johnny, right? There's nowhere on my list of questions to ask, right? But I mean, that has to be an interesting story. Like, how do you meet Johnny, right? Or
yeah,
you like neighborhood friends or like this, it just happens, right? You know, like me and you, like we don't know each other for the day, but I did a podcast with somebody talk about pickup ball, and you did a LinkedIn post. Hey, check out this podcast with JC. He did a talk about pickup ball, right?
yeah.
And look up. Oh, shit, this is a pretty interesting dude right here, right? Oh shit, he's doing this. He's doing that. Hey, let me see. Hey, you want to be on the podcast, right? You
Yeah.
know.
So let me share with you why that happened. So 2024 is all about like Instagram and LinkedIn and stuff like that. And I'm like, man, like we really want to get sponsors and connect with more people.
Mhm.
So I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna make my link. I'm gonna update my LinkedIn
Yeah,
and see what's out there.
yeah,
So I just started typing in like
mhm,
podcasts, pickleball,
mhm.
stuff like that. And then I was like, there's another podcast in Saigon. Like how have I missed this? So I'm like the 2025 is all about how many
Yeah,
connections can we get
yeah,
through LinkedIn because this is more professional network,
yeah,
more opportunities for sponsorships and
mhm,
professional
yeah,
connections. And I saw yours and I was
yeah,
like, my God, I mean, look, this guy's doing so well on
yeah,
LinkedIn, you know. So I was like, man, this is a really big opportunity for us.
yeah.
So
No, this is a fun lot of time, right? Plus, like one thing I do different, like a lot of people say on the podcast, like do some of the niche in 30 minutes, right? For me, I like to talk to interesting people. Like I've talked to US Olympians, brain scientists, artists, you know, and sometimes like what, like I asked you before you started, like what do you not want to talk about?
oh yeah,
Because sometimes these, I'm talking about psychedelics, is God real?
yeah,
God
yeah,
with atheism, all kind of like, kind of controversial topics, right? You know,
yeah.
but it's just the conversation just goes, the conversation goes.
I think that's such a great way to do it. And you've got like this, you've got like a really nice setup here
Yeah,
that allows
yeah,
for that. Sometimes we do podcasts in a sweaty gym,
yeah.
you know what I mean?
But you've been
Um,
authentic. That's what you are. So that's your brand, so to speak. So you need to keep doing that.
yeah,
And so I came here in November. Originally, I came here to be my friend's wedding February 6th. Say, Jace, you know, people here not just being a podcast with you, right? So did a podcast. I think you're number 10. But back in the States in Seattle, I have like the whole set. I had like actual, like, basically like a Joe Rogan type podcast studio, right? Also, you don't drink anymore, but I have like 7 bottles of bourbon, right? I never, I mean, someone drink, I say, do you want to drink? And if they say yes, those are
yeah.
usually a whole lot of fucking fun, right? Because once people start taking shots of bourbon, yeah, this really does
Oh man,
open
dude,
up.
that's
Yeah.
good. So you're going back to the United States soon.
Yeah. Like February 9th, I think. Yeah.
And are you coming back?
I want to. Yeah. Yeah. I
Okay.
don't know if I do the podcast here again. It's just a lot of hassle, right? Being on the stuff here. And like, I was part of Earth VC. I was able to get this place for free and exchange like, advertising stuff like that, you know? Cause I try to find a co-working space, but man, they want like crazy amount of money. Like, man, this is like United States rework level money, right? I'm not paying
Yeah.
$2,000 a month for this, right? But luckily I was able to find this, but just like a
Yeah.
one-time deal, right? So I don't know if I can do it again. Plus, like just like all the
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah.
If you're interested, we can use Dolphy for free.
Okay.
We can do podcasting, and I can help you set up.
Okay.
And if you do have some extra slots for
Mhm.
podcasting, I'd recommend Pickleball Dave.
Okay.
He is an interesting personality.
Okay.
He is so good on the mic. And this
Pickleball
is
day.
Dave. I've actually known Dave for like
Mhm.
20
Mhm.
years. He is someone who he has so much value to give to the world,
Mhm.
and he's undiscovered talent.
Yeah.
And like we kind of use our podcast to get him
Mhm.
some exposure,
Yeah.
and he is making connections in ways that I never thought that he'd be able to
Yeah. You
do.
never know.
But he would be a really interesting
Yeah.
guy.
Yeah. I like to meet
and
him.
and uh and I asked Dave, I was like, Dave, would you want to be on this podcast? He's like, man, I'd love to do it. And he is a
Yeah,
natural
definitely, definitely.
on the
One thing about doing a podcast, like a lot of times, like I have someone on the podcast maybe a year ago, and they send me a text, "Hey, Jason, thanks again for having me on the podcast. I just still close a business deal based on someone looking seeing the podcast, right?" And that happens so many times, right?
that what?
They're like someone be on the podcast a year ago, and
Yeah.
like text me like today, "Hey, Jason, man, I closed a business deal from the podcast I was on with you a year ago, right?" Someone just randomly saw the YouTube video.
Wow.
Yeah. But one thing I
Yeah.
suck at, I have to do a better job monetizing myself, right? I'm not doing any ads and like that. So I have to start doing that, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not doing ads or anything.
Some kind of sponsorship, something I need to do.
Yeah, I think and maybe we can kind of work together on
Mhm.
that. But for that, I encourage you to come to grappling and
Okay.
pickleball, and you'll meet some people,
Mm.
and you never know where it's going to go.
Yeah. And one thing about the podcast, like you're gonna start like once every 2 weeks, but you could easily do a podcast every day, right? I mean,
Yeah,
so many guests you want to have on, or you just talk about yourself. Like, so I only do my podcast in person. So I want to do a person in Seattle. Have a backlog of 100 people who want to be on the podcast in Seattle. I get at least 5 emails a day from podcast agencies saying, "Hey, Jason, um, John Bob, blah 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 from Denver wants to come to the podcast." Yeah, I don't do Zoom anymore, right? So
yeah. I think like for ideally for me, if all I had to do
mm,
was host and talk,
mm,
and other people did all the editing, the production, everything,
yeah,
that
all of us can't afford a young Jamie like Joe Rogan does, right?
yeah. But I think in Vietnam it's possible,
Mm,
and we've been able to outsource some
yeah,
things. Like they're like these interns really want to make a
yeah,
difference and learn and attach themselves to movements that they appreciate or
yeah.
they want to be a part of. I do think that is possible.
So one thing here, like I have a big backlog of content to upload. So I found a person on Upwork, right, who lives here in Ho Chi Minh City, and she's like doing all the hashtags and SEO and thumbnails for all my videos now, right? At a pretty reasonable price, right?
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
We've been able to get a lot of professional
Mhm.
photographers that just show up at our events
Mhm.
and take pictures,
Yeah.
like incredible quality of photos, like
Mhm.
mind blowing
Yeah.
that they were just able to come. So, and I think, and I guess to go back to your question, it's basically if I can outsource everything
Yeah.
by the end of 2025,
Yeah.
because editing is just the biggest source of
Yeah.
anxiety for
Okay,
me.
with that for me, like I've tried to outsource it to different people, like and like don't get me wrong, like you can't expect them to be as good as you, or you so like, damn, dude, can you be half as good as me, right? Like,
That's true.
and then it's like that kind of like personal control, like, man, this is my thing, so to speak, right? But I definitely want to be the word like no one's gonna be Joe Rogan, of course, the experience about someone like you have a team, just like they plan everything, you just show up. Hey, Jason, your next podcast is with blah 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 2 p.m. and here's like a little brief on him, right? And everyone else does everything, right?
Yeah.
But of course, only 1% of people are the Joe Rogans. Most people like like I'm gonna send this video by this guy named Jesse Tinsley, and so there's a stat that says like there's actually 4 million podcasts on like Apple Podcasts. Only 400,000 actually are still doing it because like most of them quit before 10. So yeah,
Yeah.
there's a lot of stats of people quit because they realize how hard it is. Or they think I did 2 podcasts was my $1 million deal, right? So it's a lot of that,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. It's a lot of unique challenges.
Yeah, well, I think
Um,
you have a good podcast because the fact you're so niche, right? You know who to go after, certain sponsors, certain things.
yeah. And it's like we always it's so it would be so hard to do a podcast where you're just by yourself talking about a topic,
Yeah,
and you're uploading it to Spotify and you
yeah,
get 3 views a week.
yeah,
Like with this, everyone in our tiny community
mhm,
wants to watch it.
yeah.
So we can always go interview. Oh, we haven't interviewed this guy,
Mhm.
and put it on Instagram where it gets thousands of views, whereas like YouTube might only get like 50 views.
And that's a really big difference here in the States. Like the States having a podcast, like no one shares anything on the stuff that's say. Even the people on the podcast don't share it right here. Everyone shares it right. Like I had a Raphael Masters on podcast one time. He shared it. His network shared it right.
Yeah,
Like totally different vibe here versus the States, right?
yeah. And the cool thing about our podcast, like it's people are incentivized to go on there. People are incentivized to share it. Oh, that's my coach.
Yeah.
That's my friend. So it's like it. Our podcast with authenticity. We just want to create
Yeah.
opportunities for everybody.
Yeah, I'm sure you probably did a podcast like that. I think we could have a podcast for you, podcast with someone like, like they tell us, hey, like before they got in this, like they're kind of like weak-minded, like people picked on them, had no confidence, and like they're like life was kind of sucky, and then like got involved and they got confidence like blossomed and opportunities came.
Yeah, for sure. This podcast has created so many opportunities to include myself. I want opportunities too. And that has created like if it wasn't for that, I would not know Johnny.
Yeah.
And that's just for me, it's just really cool to do stuff like that.
So what's your advice for someone who wants to move to Vietnam and live here like full time?
I would just come here, get into a community. Don't go to bars first and rely on those friendships. Not to go into bars is the wrong thing. I recommend going to like a martial arts gym to meet good people with your interests in mind. You know what I mean? And then like maybe they want to work remotely or something like that, and just find a good place to live where they think, oh, I have really good people who can find you a great place to live here in Chaldean. Have a lot of different people who can introduce you to the right communities and things like that. Come to Chaldean, go to a martial arts class, meet some quality people who have your best interest in mind. If you meet the same you can meet the same person in a grappling gym versus the bar, the relationship's not the same.
Mm.
You meet them in a grappling gym or martial arts, you're gonna have a special bond. You meet them in a bar, the same exact person, it's just another person in a bar. A lot of commitments and business ideas or plans are made after midnight in bars that never happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you meet someone in a gym in a strong community here, you're gonna meet people who are gonna guide you in the right way.
Can you share your like social media links or ways for people to reach out to you?
Yes. So Instagram is probably the best. Is Z Crush 13, ZCRUSH 13. And you can search my name, Zac ZAC Crush on Facebook. If you just Google my name, Zac Crush, you're gonna find it. And then the handle of the podcast is Saigon Saga, spells. But if you Google Zac Crush on LinkedIn or Facebook or Instagram, I think I'm the only one on the internet.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we talked about a lot of stuff. Before we get out of here, can you give us advice on wisdom or anything you want to talk about?
I think that I really think that there's one quote, everyone asks you like, what's the most impactful quote of your life? And I think the most impactful quote that has impacted me the most is this: don't take the projects or challenges where you think, oh, I can do that. Take the ones where you think, I don't know if I can do that or not. And all the great opportunities I've had in life have resulted in the latter. Like I didn't think I could be a good wrestler. I didn't think I could be a good podcaster. I didn't think I would be a good recruiter, but I took these challenges. Like when Johnny offered me that recruiting job, I was a little intimidated. Like, am I going to be able to do this? But that has created a lot of other opportunities. Am I really going to be able to be a podcast host? Are people going to make fun of me? Are they going to take me seriously? But the rewards are 1,000-fold when you do things you don't think you can, because just like you said, when you try to do things, the universe conspires to help you. You know, like that in that book, The Alchemist. You know, I really do believe that when you try to do, when you have courage to do something that you truly believe in, the universe will conspire to help you. I do believe that.
Yeah. So back to podcast, the question asking, right? So a lot of people say, no, what's the purpose of podcast? Why you like doing it? Like, of course, everyone wants like downloads and views. But one thing I'm proud of is like every guest I've had, I've always said after podcast, Jason had such a great time, had such a good experience. Like me,
Yeah.
that's my metric, right? If the guest afterwards says I had a great time, that's all I care about, you know.
Yeah. And you, and I've had a great time with you. Thank you so
Mhm.
much for having and just having a good time.
Yes.
You know.
Exactly. So thanks for your time, Dave. Really appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, Jason.
And to our listeners, thank you for your time as well. Remember to be great every day.